Itziar and Michael, it's great to have you with us here today at the Aries Day 2021. So, Itziar, maybe first, just tell us more about this great catch Forto is, because of course, logistic is the backbone of global commerce today. So, what it like crucial to actually grab a bite of this market with Forto?
So maybe just 2 words on what freight forwarding is. This is what Forto is all about. It's orchestrating all parties involved in a complex shipment from goods, for example, from a warehouse in China, from a manufacturing plant in China to a warehouse in France. Mm-hmm. And so talking about logistics, we've been really fascinated by the space for quite some years and by what digitalization has to offer to areas like freight forwarding. We've also been tracking Forto for quite some time, and we were really highly impressed by what the company was achieving in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. So we saw quickly how the company was getting a critical mass by serving German customers that were importing from China. And we were convinced that the company had the potential to really become a leader also in international markets by expanding into Asia and Europe.
Wonderful. How about you grab a seat, because we're about to dive in what Forto is all about with you, Michael, of course.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me today. My name is Michael. I'm co-founder and CEO at Forto, and thanks already, Itziar, for those for the short introduction and making my life easier and explaining what Forto is all about. And obviously, first and foremost, for all the support in the last 15 to 16 months since Iris basically joined Forto back then. I want to basically explain to you today a little bit in the light of the introduction why it makes sense to collaborate between France and Germany. Best example for this is that one of my most important sparring partners in building the business and our CFO at Forto, Guillaume, is also currently with you in the hall. So if there are further questions, he will be available. And that partnership has worked out great. Guillaume is from Paris, and I'm very happy that he joined Forto at the beginning of this year. And second of all, I want to also speak about why it's at Forto, it's not just about becoming a unicorn or raising a lot of money, but why this is still day one for us, and why are we going after this market, and what is really the potential behind building this business. If we can go, please, to the next slide, that would be awesome. Why did we start Forto in the very beginning? At Forto, we believe that global trade has been the most massive contributor to prosperity in human history. Over the last 30 years alone, more than 1 billion people were lifted out of poverty because they could actually participate in global trade. And that is one strong fundamental driver that has brought us into this industry, and that we want to further nurture by building the backbone of global trade and while making the end-to-end experience for customers more convenient, a lot easier, and ultimately a lot more reliable, democratize trade further so we make it accessible to more people. Please to the next slide. The second pillar, though, is that the way that we've been doing trade over the last probably 270 years, but with containerization primarily the last 65 years, because this was actually when the first container landed in Germany 65 years ago. And 65 years ago, there were probably around 80,000 containers that were moved a year. In 2021, it's more than 170 million. And today, this enormous and massive industry is contributing to about 6-7% of global emissions. And we at Forto believe that we can only contribute to the same level trade has been contributing to global prosperity levels if it happens at a more sustainable level. And this is why deeply enrooted into our purpose and the culture of the company, we care about not just how much we trade, but also how the trade happens. And that is why we put sustainability so strongly at the core focus of what we are doing. And I'm very proud to say today that already 50% of our volume is being offsetted by our clients today. And obviously, there's still a few more months to go in this year to make it to 100. At the same time, if you look at the entire end-to-end value chain of bringing goods from the place they were manufactured to the place where people consume it, and here we can please go to the next slide, it's pretty obvious that on both ends of the chain, a lot of digitalization has happened. Starting from sourcing goods through platforms like Alibaba and probably one of the most massive networks that have emerged in China the last decade, all the way to the end customer contact through e-commerce interfaces, direct to consumer brands. Yeah? Companies like Zalando, Home24, or On Running, who rely on those global end-to-end value chains, and all of the three actually are customers with us. And if you look at this end-to-end value chain, it becomes clear that in one of the most meaty parts, the global logistics part, basically the global orchestration of maneuvering those goods from China to Germany, from France to Japan, from Australia to the US, there's been little digitalization going on. And there's no single freight forwarder that has been founded after the internet came into play. And I think that's also shows to some extent why they are structured the way they are structured today and how antiquated they sometimes still work. And that's why we said we're going after this massively $750 billion market to make the end-to-end process of shipping goods from the factory to the warehouse, from the point where they're produced to the point where they are then distributed to the end clients, as smooth and convenient for the client as it is to transfer an online payment today. And with Forto today, we do exactly this. And if you go to the next slide, you see it in a short animation. We help our clients from the moment they think about ordering goods with the supplier, through the process of picking it up at the factory with a truck, bringing it to the port, getting it managed through export authorities. Then obviously choosing the right vessel to sail on for the 40-foot container from Shanghai to Hamburg, the import customs process. After declaration of customs, then the transport with a truck, a barge, or rail to the final warehouse, where it then can be distributed to the end client or any retail stores. This is what we do today, and the opportunity at hand, as that, is massive, and the way that we've been executing on it the last 5.5 years has been seeing a lot of support. If you go to the next slide, please, we are, as said, ultimately looking at a super fragmented $750 billion global market. There's more than 100,000 different freight forwarding players out there today, a lot of them too small to really transform the way they're working today. And then the top 20, top 30, so massively tied up in legacy and problems with the IT that it's really difficult for them to shift the way they're working completely. We are at a strong run rate. We've been tripling our growth 2019 to 2020 and tripling it again 2020 to 2021 with an expected revenue of more than $300 million by the end of 2021. The most massive differentiator between our competition and Forto today is twofold. Not just that the entire user experience through a beautifully designed front end makes it much easier, more convenient for the client to deal with all the problems that arise in global trade today, but it's also massively more efficient. So we built our own backend system that operates those thousands of shipments a month and makes it about 3 times more efficient for our workforce to handle it than for our incumbent competition. If you go to the next slide, I just want to reflect and repeat again, we've been growing this business for more than 3x in the last 4 consecutive years. And that's another proof why I'm saying we're still at the very beginning. We may be valued at a certain number today, but our clear goal is to strive really for building one of the top 10 global logistics players. And I think there's very few markets where you can build a $25 billion business, but this is definitely one of them. Underlined by strong growth numbers and a lot of funding, ultimately we could also achieve one of our most important targets, compiling a team with strong will and skill. And if you go to the next slide, please, we are really proud of having compiled probably one of the most experienced and most hands-on senior leadership teams for a European growth company. Some of you may have the chance to get to know Guillaume. He joined us after 18 years with JP Morgan. This year as our CFO. Our Chief Operating Officer, Michael Arnold, a successful entrepreneur himself before he joined Forto. He basically built a influencer app he successfully sold to Zalando. Our Chief Revenue Officer, Kenneth, prior being responsible for the go-to-market of Dropbox, and prior to that leading the enterprise sales force at Vodafone with more than 1,000 people. Our Executive VP Engineering joining from Workday, where he's been leading the global machine learning team and search. Camille, our EVP product, who just joined from Lyft, where he's been responsible for the entire B2B team of more than 1,000 people. And last but not least, Fabi, our executive VP strategy, who's been consulting some of the most leading logistics players prior at McKinsey. And with this team, we have basically everything at hand that it takes now to scale our current team from about 650 people in 15 locations to roughly 2,000 over the next 2.5 years. And with this, I think we do not just have a strong investor base here with Iris at hand, but also all the other remaining ingredients, a strong product, and an amazing team who can execute on this huge opportunity. Yeah, and with this, I hope I could give you a short glance at what Forto is doing, a short outlook on what we are going after, and I now hope you all have a great day and time during the Iris Capital Days.